live with brown hair this time. And today I'm going to do the first of HRCYED, Hardest Reading Challenge You'll Ever Do check-ins. So I started this challenge in July. I'm going to do a check-in now that we are 1/3 of the way done with the time frame. I'll do one 2/3 of the way, and then when the challenge is over. I've seen other people do these check-in videos and have really enjoyed them, so I decided to do one of my own. Let me know in the comments if you're doing this challenge as well and how you're liking it, and if you have any suggestions for any of the prompts that maybe I'm missing something, or correct me if I'm doing a prompt wrong. I think I have all the rules down, but I'm not entirely sure. HRCYED is the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. It was designed by QWERTY, or Stephanie is her name. Discovered this challenge right before the second round started, and I am someone whose organizational part of my brain, I love reading challenges. I love organizing my reading challenges in Storygraph. I like having a plan. It just appeals to some part of my brain. So when I saw this challenge, I was like, yeah, even if I don't finish it, which is not the point, but like very, very common. It's, I think, more unusual to finish it than not finish it. But I really just wanted to challenge myself and my reading. So let's just get into the spreadsheet. I realized I have been yapping for 5+ minutes, just, you know, going over things, and I wasn't recording the entire time. So now I am. Let's start with this first page, which is after, you know, the introduction and rules and such. This is the bingo board. So what it'll do is when you finish a challenge on another page, there's a little box you can check, and then it'll highlight this on the bingo board as when each of these challenges is completed. So as you can see, I haven't technically completed any of them. That said, it's not as dire as it looks. And I look forward to when I will finally have some that are highlighted. But let's get into the rest of the spreadsheet. So these tracker pages and stats pages I haven't been using. I really need to kind of go back and see if that's something I want to do, how it was kind of designed to be done, and that sort of thing. But I haven't been using those, and maybe I will want to, but maybe it also means I have to enter every single book I've read since when this challenge started in July, and I don't know how I feel about that. So, okay, this first page is by the hundreds. As you can see, I'm almost done with it. A disclaimer I will say is one of the rules of this challenge is that we can repeat every book twice. So I can use every book that I read for 2 prompts within this challenge, which is really nice. And I decided that I wanted to do that as much as possible in order to work a little smarter and not harder. So as you see my spreadsheet, if it's highlighted in blue like this, it means that it's either, you know, like completed if it's in kind of the completed section and I'm using it for 2 prompts and I'm counting it for 2 prompts. If it's yellow, it means I've completed it and it's being used for this prompt, but I haven't found another prompt for it to be useful for. That might just be because I haven't sat down to find it or not. And it might just mean that I haven't sat down and looked at all the prompts and seen what else that book can count for. But with that being said, I'm trying to do that doubling up as much as possible, but there are certain prompts that if I read more books than, you know, are the bare minimum, if you only read a set amount of books and you counted them all for 2 prompts, there's like a minimum number of books you would need. If I read beyond that, and I'm sure that I will, there are certain prompts that I'm definitely okay with that. You know, like there's a BIPOC reading challenge. If I read 10 BIPOC books and not all of them count twice for this challenge, that's okay, because it's important to be reading those books and trying to diversify my reading. So that little disclaimer over, I have read all of these books so far, one for each of the hundreds up to 700. I am planning on reading Kingdom of Ash for 700 plus pages. I think it's something like 900 pages, maybe. I look forward to being done with that. I have been reading the Throne of Glass series since high school, I think. It's just been a matter of, I read one or two books and then I put them down, and then a year later I have to go back and reread one of them, or 5 years later I go back and reread them. So I've never actually finished that series. I am planning to by the end of this year, so I look forward to that being done, and then I'll be able to check off that this challenge is completed. I have not done a 24-hour readathon yet. I'm hoping to schedule one to do with friends. I don't know how I would do as an individual just sitting down and doing a 24-hour reading challenge by myself. I feel like I'd go a little bit crazy if I didn't have someone to talk to or commiserate with in that. So next one is subgenres of choice. What I've kind of learned is I always thought that fantasy was my most read genre, but because so many of my fantasy books also count as like romance books in something like Storygraph, because they have a romance subplot or they're romantasy and they have a big romance plot, they count for both. So between that and the reading I do of romance books outside of fantasy, romance ends up being my number one genre all the time. So I've broken it down into subgenres. So I wanted to read a fantasy romance, a historical romance, sports, dark, paranormal, and dystopian. And I've read a few of them. I've probably read a sports, a dark, and a paranormal at this point in the year, but I just haven't sat down to look and see if there's something I wanted to count for these, and or maybe I counted them for different prompts later on, but I don't foresee this being a problem. I will read one of each of those. Okay, next is series staircase. So we have to read one book, a duology, or a standalone, a duology, a trilogy, and then a series with 4 or more. So I just counted Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches for my standalone. I know that it has kind of an interconnected, to some extent, book now that's out, but when looking into it, they're not connected on Goodreads or Storygraph or anything. So I think they take place in the same world, but the author isn't counting them as connected. For the duology, I'm reading the Divine Rivals duology. I have read Divine Rivals. I haven't read Ruthless Vows. I'm hoping to in the next couple of months. I don't have anything slotted in for my trilogy yet, but again, I read a lot of fantasy, so I'm sure I will find one in the next few months to either finish that I've already started this year or to start and finish in that time frame. I started the Lady of Darkness series, which I think is actually 5 books plus a couple of novellas. So I am using that for my 4 or more books in a series. As you can see, actually, I think I need to I'm gonna highlight these in yellow because I have read each of them for this prompt, but I haven't gone back to see if there's another prompt to fill in these within, and then I can make them blue. And then I need to read Lady of Embers, which I'm planning on doing in November, and then this bit will be complete. Even though I technically won't be done with the series at that point, I will have read the 4 I needed to for this. So if you have a favorite trilogy of all time, let me know. I'm open. Okay, next is award season. So I find this to be a little bit difficult, as I think a lot of the times either I find awards have, very clear winners that they discuss, or, everything's listed as like a short list or a long list and then the winner. And so I'm like, is that a semi-finalist? Is it an entrant? How am I counting this? I'm using Divine Rivals for the Goodreads winner, using the Thursday Murder Club for the Edgar Award winner. I want to read this We Set the Dark on Fire. I'm from Oregon originally, and it won the Oregon Spirit Book Award, so I plan on reading that. And then other than that, I might read some Goodreads for like semi-finalist and finalist. I want to look into other awards and see. It's a little bit difficult, I think, because some awards I think are just structured as like, here's the long list, here's the short list. Do I count that as semi-finalist and finalist? I have to really kind of just sit down and think about it, which I haven't done, but I need to. Okay, the next one is a TBR game. You take someone else's TBR game and use it to come up with the books you're going to read for that. I haven't done this yet. I've highlighted a couple of my favorite games that I think would be slightly easier to do. I don't know about TBR Cluedo, but I love that game that Meg does. I will do this at some point. I'll probably do it. I'll use it for my TBR of that month when I'm creating my TBR. So this will probably be one of my monthly TBRs in the new year. Next one is The Last 10 Years. I did write down a lot of potential options of books I've been wanting to read and what year they came out. But so far I have 2018 Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan, 2020 Hollow Heathens, 2024 The Poisoner, and 2025 Arcana Academy. So I don't foresee this being a super difficult one to finish. I just have to be a little bit more deliberate about actually reading books that count and not just anything I want, because obviously a lot of these I want to read. Next page is adaptations. I haven't done a whole lot for this. I read the Graceling graphic novel. It's an adaptation of the original first Graceling book within that series by Kristen Kishore. This is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. Technically, I've only read the first 3 ever because for a long time, those were the only 3 out in the series. And in the meantime, I reread Graceling and Fire, the first 2. Fire was, I feel like, probably what I can contribute as kind of either my love of like grumpy male main characters or enemies to lovers really started with that book. So I highly recommend this series if you haven't read it. And I've reread it as an adult. It is a YA series that I was a little bit afraid that it wouldn't hold up for an adult audience when I reread them, but I love them just as much as when I read them as a teenager. So I read the graphic novel adaptation, and then I've watched the movie of the Thursday Murder Club since it came out this summer. Also read that book this year, so that's nice. Some of them I'll try and read the source material as well, but I need to check. I don't think we have to do that. I think we just have to do the adaptation, but if I can do both, I will. TV show, I'm probably going to count The Summer I Turned Pretty as an adaptation, the 3rd season for We'll Always Have Summer. This is one that I went back, rewatched all of the 1st season before the 3rd season came out, started the 2nd season, and then I was like, wait, I want all of the 3rd season to be out so I can just binge it. And then I just never went back and did that. So I need to do that. Whether I do that in the depths of winter or wait until early next summer, I don't know. We'll find out. This is a web series. So we have to watch a web series. I have watched the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, which was like a YouTube web series that came out, I want to say like the mid-2000s on YouTube. It's so fun. They're like, 3 to 7 minute long videos, and it's a modern adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, and I really loved it when I found it. They've also done one for Emma and a few other classics, I think. So I can rewatch all of that all the way through. Like, don't mind doing that at all. but maybe I should look into some other web series of adapting books. So, and then animation, I know I've seen Katie. I don't remember what Katie is Reading, I think is her username on YouTube, but she loves Yona of the Dawn. I haven't read any of I think it's a manga, but I know it also has an anime show, and I'm interested in that because it is kind of fantasy with romance. So retelling, I don't foresee having any issues. There's this whole series of like remix books, and I think they're all done with more like diverse storylines. So this one is a remix of Pride and Prejudice, but it is a trans character, is Elizabeth Bennet, I believe. There's also Pride and Premeditation. There will be plenty for modern retelling. And then I have to figure out the musical, if there's a musical I can go to and a play. Those are the ones that I feel like are going to be a little bit more difficult. I would like to go and see them in person if I can and not just watch like a recording online, but I will if I need to. Okay, disability challenge. So far I've read a book with dyslexia representation. This is Sunny Disposition by Deanna Gray. I enjoyed it. I think I gave it like a 3.5 stars. And then I read Out on a Limb for limb difference representation. Really, really loved this book, as everyone does. And then I've read Broken Whispers by Neva Altai. This is the Perfectly Imperfect series. There's disability rep in each of the books in this series, which I really appreciate. And then I have a couple others I still need to do. This book, Icarus, will come up again later. I haven't read it yet, but I believe there's representation for EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, in it. So I do want to read that. This is one that if you've seen my first BookTuber birthdays video, Ava's romance books always has a lot of disability representation recs on her channel, so I get a lot of my recs from her. Next is Heritage Months. This I am actually where I need to be for it. So I read Out on a Limb during Disability Pride Month in July, and then I read When the Tides Hold the Moon in, I think I read it in September. Hispanic Heritage Month is like September 15th to October 15th or something like that. It's kind of the middle of one month to the middle of the next. I think I read it in September. And then I plan on reading Killers of the Flower Moon for Indigenous Heritage Month in November this month. And then I'll, continue. It's not required that you read them in the month of this, the Heritage Month, but I'm trying to do that as much as I can. I am somewhat of a seasonal reader, and while I am working hard to, diversify my reading more and read diverse books outside of their celebration months, it's just, it's nice to be able to do it within the month and be very deliberate about it. So next is translation, and I haven't read any. I have an idea of the books I want to read and what language they're translated from. I just haven't done it because the world is hard and all I want to do is read romantasy and dark romance books. And if you can find me a romantasy or dark romance that's translated, please let me know in the comments. I haven't really found anything. So these are all books I want to read. It's just, when life is tough, you just fall back on comfort reads. So I haven't done that, but these are the books I'm planning on reading. And then next is Around the World. So a book from each continent. Planning on reading Jawbone, that translated work. It's a horror book for both the translated book and the South America representation in this. Thinking about reading an Allie Hazelwood for Europe, because Allie is from Germany, Netherlands, Italy. I was off. Okay, and then the one I have read is This Cruel and Lovely by Stasia Stark. She is actually from New Zealand, I believe, but I'm just kind of counting this as Oceania, not just Australia, and we'll see if I get the bonus. I have a couple of ideas listed for other ones. North America will be very easy. I'm not worried about that, so let me know if you have any suggestions. Next is Spooky Creatures. I read The Poisoner to count for vampire. I'm not going to put anything in there in these cells, I don't think. I'm going to read Good Spirits probably in December. It is a Christmas book with ghosts, so I'm looking forward to that. I read Upon a Starlit Tide that has merfolk in it. Really, really loved this book. And then this month I'm planning on reading The Undermining of Twyla and Frank, which has a zombie-like creature in it. And then Empire Flame of Thorns is something I've been wanting to read for a while, and it has dragons in it. So I will say dragons here in this cell. Fae folk, magic users, I'm not worried. I will definitely read books that will count for these. And then Shifter, I have been dabbling in Omegaverse, so I'm sure I will find something that I can use for this one. Next is the Even Bigger Rainbow, which is going well so far. I have a couple of repeats that we've already talked about. Undermining of Twyla and Frank will go in purple. Yeah, each of these are just counting for a color. I don't need to go too much into detail for them. The 7+ colors is going to be interesting. They all have to be on the cover. So I have Black Salt Queen, which is a BIPOC. I think she is a Black author from the US, but I think it's a romantasy. But I'll look for more options for that. And then the next one is To Make Quote. This one I have not done enough on. I need to work on it, but sometimes you have to kind of like put in books that you're not as incredibly excited about. So I don't know if I need to change my quote. I love this quote. It's a Sarah J. Maas quote. For between two characters, I don't want to spoil anything. It's between two characters that are not actually like in a romantic relationship, and then people are in danger, and one of the characters says to the other, I have no regrets in my life but this, that we did not have time. And I just find that so deeply romantic when, you know two characters they have feelings for one another, but it hasn't been their time yet. And I love that quote. It's like, hey, I'm facing my death, and the only thing I regret in my life is that I didn't have time to be with you. Like, wow, okay. Stab me in the heart. This side. Stab me in the heart. Counting a Court This Cruel and Lovely for this. And yeah, so we'll see. I have books written down for each of the words. Some of them I'm excited to read before I let go. I'm looking forward to Daughter of No Worlds. I want to read One Day Everyone Will Have Been Against This. I'm really looking forward to reading. I do want to read all of these books, but they just haven't been ones that I have prioritized. So we shall see. Some of them do count for other prompts in here. So, like I Who Have Never Known Men. I do want to read that. But okay, next is Become the Avatar. I need to look into, why is this on the spreadsheet twice? Do we have to read 2 for each? Not that I was aware of, but maybe. maybe I just don't know. I have potentials for these. They'll be pretty easy to slot in. So you can do it where either the word is, or the element is on the cover, or the word is in the title. I was trying to be a little bit harder on myself and do them all word in the title, but sometimes that's a little difficult. So we'll see what I end up doing. Next is a readathon challenge. I have completed multiple readathons this year. Have I counted any of them in here? No. Should I probably do that? Yes. But also, maybe I just complete one in the beginning of 2026, in the first few months of 2026, and then I'm deliberate about counting it. I don't know. Should I do that? Probably. Next tab is animals. Haven't counted any of these. I'm, again, probably could go back and think about all the books I've read since July and find some, but exotic pets, I'm planning on probably reading the Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love. There are birds in that book. Done and Dusted is a cowboy romance, so there will be a horse. A Feather So Black Has a Swan, which is one of my favorite animals, so I want to read this book, so I'll probably do that for wild animals. And then elephants are my favorite animal. So I want to do an elephant for a zoo animal. Could count it as wild animal too, but I want to do an elephant book. I am interested in this Love, Life, and Elephants book. It's a memoir, but if you know of any memoirs or really incredible nonfiction books about elephants that are like, what is the word I'm trying to think of? I want to be conscious of what I'm reading, and that either I read a book about, you know, kind of some of the issues, the social justice issues surrounding elephants. I want it to come from a good perspective, either critiquing issues and or like the ivory trade, or the critiquing like the tourism around elephants and that sort of thing, or I want to read like a memoir of someone who has worked with elephants or something like that. I just want to be a little bit more conscious that I'm reading a little bit more of a positive and ethical book about elephants. So let me know if you have any suggestions for that. House pets will be easy. A cat or a dog. I will read a book with that in it. Queer alphabet. So far, I have read We Could Be So Good, which is a great romance where both of the characters are gay. It's a historical romance. Really enjoyed that. I will very easily read a sapphic romance. I want to read a bisexual romance soon. Plenty of options for that. I read Rules for Ghosting, which has a trans main character. That book, Icarus, that I brought up, according to the internet, has an intersex character in it, so I want to read that. I'm counting The Charm Offensive under asexual. One of the, this is a mild spoiler, so sorry, but one of the characters in this identifies by the end of the story as demisexual, which is under the asexual umbrella. So I definitely really, really loved this book. Polyamory, I love a poly romance. I love a poly romantasy. I'm probably going to count Frozen by Stardust. It is the next in the Beast of Briar that is coming out in, I think, April next year. And then I haven't found any that I really want to read for non-binary. I need to do more research on it. And this is one that I am unsure about. So for gender fluid and two-spirit, I was thinking of Our Infinite Fates because I know it's a reincarnation story, and I think they're reincarnated to love one another in every lifetime. And I think that transcends gender and sex in the book. I don't know if that's a conversation in the book because I haven't read it yet. So in from what I know of the book, I feel like it would probably be fine for gender fluid because, you know, it's more about the love between two souls rather than reliant on gender. But also, I do want to be a little bit more deliberate about these and read books that have conversation about gender, especially for ones that maybe I haven't read a lot of, which I would consider this to be under that umbrella. So I don't know. I want it to have discussion within the book, and so maybe I want to find something else for this, but that was an idea I had slotted in there. We'll see. The next is favorite HRCYED 1 prompt, so from the challenge from last year, and I chose this: read a book for every season in said season. So I started this in the summer, caught up, takes place in the summer, I read it in the summer. Hollow Heathens is a fall book, I read it in the fall. I'm probably going to read Beartown for winter, and then I don't know yet what I'm going to read for spring. Next is BIPOC authors. Some of these, actually all of these so far, are repeat ones, but I also have ideas of other ones that I want to read and prioritize, potential books. So I look forward to being more deliberate about this, and I've really enjoyed the books I've read so far. Okay. And then this is the new releases challenge. So I have to read a book that comes out in each month within 2 months of it being released. So I read Arcana Academy, which came out in July. I think I read it in August or September, but within those 2 months, I read The Gilded Heiress as an arc in August, just before, like, I think I finished it the day before it came out. And then I read To Cage a Wild Bird in September. Good Spirits is what I'm going to count for October. It did come out in October, but I think it was later in October, and I'll probably read it in early December because it's a holiday book. And then Fallen City by Adrienne Young is probably what I will count for November, but I plan on reading it in November. I don't have anything for December yet, but, you know, there are creators that I follow that put out anticipated releases videos, so I'm sure I will come up with something to read that's a December release. For next year, I think Frozen by Stardust I might count for April. There's a queer historical romance by an author that I read. I don't remember what the author's name is, but it's Don't Love You Like a Best Friend is the first book. Really love that. And the second book, I don't know if this book that's coming out, I think in March, is connected to those, or if it's just also a queer historical romance, but I might use that for March. But I look forward to seeing new releases for next year that I want to read. I'm probably going to do an anticipated releases video, so hopefully you'll see that for me. Next one, okay, this is the Challenge Yourself prompt, the Challenge Yourself challenge, which has looked like a few different things for me so far, and I've changed it. I originally was planning on, originally I wanted to do this, and then I went back and changed it to wanting to read all the Outlander books because I was trying to start them this fall. And just with all the books I wanted to read this fall and the fact that they are so large. Long story short, I did not get through the first Outlander book, and so I am planning on reading those soon, maybe starting them in the new year, but if that's the case, I won't have time to read the whole series before June and the end of the challenge next year. So I went back to my original idea, which was the Twisted Sisters cinematic universe. Before this challenge started, I had read the first 3 books in the Zodiac Academy series and the first 2 books in the Ruthless Boys series. So they have 3 interconnected series: Zodiac Academy, Ruthless Boys, and Darkmoor Penitentiary. My goal for this is to read or to finish everything in Ruthless Boys and to finish everything in Zodiac Academy. That's a lot of books. And they have like actual novella length novellas, and then they have, you know, like 5.5, which is a novella in number, but then it might be like a 400-page book in between two 800-page books. So this is going to be a lot. I probably should have started it a little bit sooner than I did. I have read Vicious Fae, which is the third book in the Ruthless Boys series. I didn't love it, so I have Broken Fae and Warrior Fae slotted in here for November and December. But it is possible that I will DNF this series and just find out, like, because the reading order that I am using has you read the first 3 Zodiac Academy books and then all of Ruthless Boys, and then you go back to the other Zodiac Academy books. So I am probably, because I guess there's something in Ruthless Boys that it's nice to have the background when you go and read the rest of the Zodiac Academy books. I would like to finish the series, but the third one I found kind of boring, and that it was a little bit long and not a whole lot happened. So and I kind of like the romances in them. It is a Why Choose series, but sometimes I find the characters to be a tad bit annoying. So will I DNF this series? Will I finish it? We will find out. And then I will read. I included all the main books in the rest of the Zodiac Academy series, and then I included kind of novellas or 0.5s or whatever if they were above 200 pages. So if they were a little bit more than novella in length, I included these. So I think I would love to finish Ruthless Boys and Zodiac Academy by the end of this challenge. I don't know if it's possible at this point, but I'm going to do my best. But I think my overall challenge is I plan to finish both, and also Darkmoor Penitentiary, all by the end of 2026, which I think is definitely doable. So we'll see how much I can get done before the end of the challenge. Okay, the next page is the nonfiction page, which, as you can see, I haven't finished anything. Again, the world is heavy. Life has been heavy. I've been unemployed because I moved back to my home state without a job, and it's been rough. So while I really enjoy nonfiction and learning about new things, I haven't wanted to read them this year. So planning on reading Killers of the Flower Moon in November. And then I have ideas for other subgenres. These are all books that I actually own. They're books that I have on my physical TBR. So, except for this one. But I do own memoirs that I can read. I just was kind of hoping to read this Palestinian author, but we'll see. So that's where I am on that. And then for the Q's recommendations, we had to read 3 books, one from a mini review she did, I'm Counting Upon a Starlit Tide, one for a full reading vlog, which I haven't decided on one yet, and one for YouTube short, TikTok, or Instagram reel. This one was on an Instagram reel, so I am counting that. Okay, that is it. So as you can see, some of the challenges I'm pretty far along on. Quite a few I haven't started, but when I look at, let me pull up Storygraph. When I look at the challenge on Storygraph, because I'm also tracking it on Storygraph, I am 35% of the way done, which is about what I would want to be now that we're 1/3 of the way through the challenge. So that said, Storygraph will count things as being completed if you have so like for this duology, I have to read both. It's counting it as completed because I've read Divine Rivals, but I haven't read Ruthless Vows. So this 35% might not be super accurate, but I'm not feeling terrible about where I'm at with this challenge. So please let me know if you have suggestions of books I should read for some prompts, I'm really gonna try and prioritize this going into the new year, because I really enjoy this challenge. So I'm trying to not put too much pressure on myself to like absolutely finish this, because I think most people don't, and I think it's designed to be that way. But I'm a completionist, and the organizational side of my brain is like, let's do as much of this as we can physically without getting sad or depressed about it. So that is my plan for HRCYED. I'll do another one of these, I think in March is when the 2/3, I think March is when we'll be 2/3 the way through the time frame, and then one at the end of the challenge. So okay, thanks for sticking around and watching this video all the way through. Like, comment, subscribe to my channel. It's really helpful as a baby YouTuber, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, friends.